manufacturing industry, understanding how a product comes together via design influenced by stakeholders and customers. For the last 4 years, Shank has been actively involved in human factors research pertaining to the ever-changing automotive interior space, where the convergence of technology and consumer interest has spawned several exciting challenges. So today, Shank is going to be talking about, specifically about AI, because that is a new space of interest that Shank has gotten into. And let's welcome Shank.
I didn't ask her to not pronounce my full name, it's just that it sounds super weird even to me. But anyways, to get started, I'll get to the title later. But my first question, which I ask myself almost every other day, is why did my smart device just do that? It comes up when an app on my phone does something, or my smart speakers at home do or say something, or I see some weird ad or notification online or my social media feeds. I am always confused by that stuff, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Some examples. Alexa or Instagram or Facebook keep showing me ads for stuff that I had already purchased. The Google Home at my apartment always interrupts me. And also, turns out a Twitter bot became racist a few years ago. And then the infamous question, why did that smart device, or how did that get a certain piece of information? For example, Google knows that I need a new sweater, but Google Maps thinks I need to go to work on a Sunday afternoon. I don't want to do that. And then of course, there's Microsoft's AI that thinks that kitchens are only for women. That's a bigger issue. As frustrating as all of this is, I keep asking myself, what if I can make AI work for me and not the other way around, where I'm really a slave to all these devices? What if I can maybe talk to them, or maybe tweak them, or maybe train them? But if that weren't to happen, I'm stuck with pointless devices. Like, I once heard a Nickelback song on Spotify, but that's been haunting me forever now. Or, I once saw a Transformers movie and my Netflix is filled with Michael Bay recommendations. Turns out the smart devices that I have are not really that smart. That brings us to the trouble with smart, which is confusion, lack of clarity, lack of transparency, and so on. Which really is the trouble with AI. Taylor Swift will approve. But before we go on, I wanted to just dive into what I call as AI. The term is very loosely used everywhere, from anything that an app could do on a smartphone to mass dystopia. But I want to focus on the very basic element of AI, which is this black box, this almost Narnia-esque closet that eats up data and then chews out or spurts out some result. It could be a suggestion, it could be an action, a recommendation, whatever. But that's the basic molecule that builds up AI, right? Going back to the trouble with AI, all the stuff that I've been talking about, you could maybe put them on a spectrum. There's local issues, like things that happen with devices in your pockets, in your cars, at home, and then there's the global issues. But I kept thinking, I know obviously the global issues have significant cultural and political consequences. But my theory is that if we are to address these local issues, the small ones that we face day to day, maybe there's a way we can figure out how to address the global ones. Here's a glimpse of how the issues might map out. I'm going to zoom in, I promise. If we take a closer look, particularly at the local issues, a user potentially has to interact with AI, but they're usually bogged down by a loss of privacy. Their data is being stolen from them. Lack of clarity, they don't know why data is being taken from them. There's all the wrong data that's being taken in by AI. There's the insufficient reason behind why AI does something. And also, there's no way to give feedback to AI. So how can we make AI work for the user? How can we make it not seem like such a black box, such a Narnia's closet that just takes in data and then spews out something that may or may not make sense all the time? Then I wondered, what if the user has a way to, train the AI or tweak it or talk to it consciously, carefully? What if there's, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. What if there's an HMI for AI? And by HMI, I mean an interface that is between the user and the AI, some sort of a layer that helps the user interact with the AI seamlessly. And what if that was based on or built upon a philosophy that is focused on interfacing AI with humans using the traditionally applied principles of human-centered design? What if Mr. Robot had makeup? So that's my question for the UX community, and I wanted to indulge in that a little bit. Is that makeup all about a set of heuristics that AI needs? Or is that all about maybe exercises that involve infrastructure and architecture design? Or maybe usability testing for AI? Or is it also about getting into standards and guidelines and stuff like that? I wanted to indulge into that process a little bit more. So let's talk about heuristics. And I wanted to take those heuristics and focus them back onto the very basic molecule of AI, which is that input-output interaction I showed earlier, where this black box just takes your data, gives you something, may or may not make sense. How can a user fit into that picture? Here are some rules that I would try. The first one, the user needs to be able to feed the right data to the AI. And we all know the idiom, garbage in, garbage out. So if the AI is reading the wrong data, biased data, it's only going to give out bias. Maybe the user can feed the AI the right data. Maybe they can tell the AI what data is right, and also maybe what is wrong. Next, the user needs to be able to provide consent as well. It's a much bigger issue than what we've been seeing so far with AI. We've seen glimpses of this with apps might ask you permissions for what they can read from you on smartphones. But essentially, what if the user was able to seamlessly provide consent to the AI in terms of what data it reads? And then you also have not only the data being read, but also context of the data. I know I like Narcos on Netflix, but that's only because it's a well-made show, not because I like gangster dramas and now all I see on my Netflix timeline is Pablo Escobar. So maybe there's context to what data is being read, and also why data is being read, why an AI should read a specific piece of data. Then of course, when you're using AI, you need to know what it can and cannot do, right? You ask Alexa something and it always, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. And that's a frustrating touch point. If the user were to seamlessly know what something can and cannot do, and we talk about that in human factors all the time, the capabilities and limitations. Then let's say the AI gives you something. The user needs to know why. What data is that result based on? What or how is that adherent to the user's behaviors? Spotify has a really great way of achieving this. They tell me some new music because I like some other music. And then finally, maybe the user also needs to be able to seamlessly talk back to the AI, give it feedback, a recommendation is wrong, but also not just that it's wrong, why is it wrong? So the AI can learn and give you better recommendations as we proceed. But those are my thoughts and my heuristics of my guidelines. I want to hear from the UX community. What are your thoughts? What is your makeup for Mr. Robot going to look like? Thank you.
Other than it just takes time to innovate, do you see any real barriers to this being worked on?
I mean, the bigger barriers would always be, I think the big piece here is with AI, the way it's being implemented, it's definitely more profit oriented at the moment, the way some people or some enterprises have been implementing it. But I don't really see any big barrier in the sense that can AI development take in humanities and human factors research, and in fact a few West Coast companies have been starting to think on these lines, like Google, and people have been collaborating with human factors people or even humanities people, understanding what are ethics, what are user needs and things like that. So there's no real barrier. I think it's just a matter of a change in perspective and understanding not only that AI is it's a very capable tool, but only when it's used in the right way. So that's where I believe the makeup will come in.
Any other questions?
Thank you.